Welcome back. You're now watching the lifestyle segment on the weekend show brought to you by Holy Crunch Popcorn. Hello, Didi.
Hi, Andy.
How was your week?
Eventful.
I can tell. What stood out for you this week?
Social media.
You know,
I learned a lot.
good
A
or bad?
lot. Bad, actually. Bad concerning the Nigerian music industry.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot of negative things. I don't know. You know, we listen to music, and in this part of the world, we enjoy the beats more than the lyrics. And someone would be crying out in their lyrics, and then all we hear is what the producer is giving us the beats, and that's what we dance to or we
We
enjoy.
joke about everything.
Absolutely.
Everything is a joke. And that's why I mentioned Omale earlier. This guy has said his music, he's been depressed so many times. It's driven his music. You hear the lyrics, but what do? We dance.
Exactly.
Dollar to Naira is 1,000. We joke about it. There's a skit. Mobad sadly he's passing. You'll see a skit next week. And that's why sometimes the other people don't take us serious. But my biggest problem is how it affects our well-being. And like you said about social media, I don't want to call it the noise, but the amount of information which we saw out there got me quite worried.
Yeah.
Which is why we're talking about suicide and suicide prevention, and it is Suicide Prevention Month. Joining us to have this conversation,
We have Chime Asonye, who is the founder of Nigerian Mental Health. Good morning and welcome back to the show. We also have Ade Dotun Esan, who is the founder Mental Health with DT Foundation. Good morning. It's nice to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
And also we have Bowale Ikotun, who is an associate pastor with the Elevation Church. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
welcome. I like that we're all young people, even though they've now removed us from the list of young people because some of us are getting older.
We're professional youth.
Professional
Yes,
youth. I like
exactly.
that. Mental health is such a big deal. Chime, you have been at the fore of this venue, which is over 6 years now. And thankfully, we now have the Mental Health Act
Yes.
signed in Nigeria. I had a conversation with you over 3 weeks ago about suicide prevention and the like, even before we had the conversations which we saw on social media last week. Tell us about Suicide Prevention Month.
This is a huge month, and I'm glad you mentioned the act, for instance, right? So we have a mental health act that we've never had before that's supposed to encourage people who are psychologically vulnerable to get help and support. But the issue is that if we criminalize attempted suicide, which is what Nigeria has, currently you can be detained for up to a year, people don't want to get help, according to the World Health Organization. And so if we want to really support the Mental Health Act and help individuals, we need to decriminalize attempted suicide. And the key thing about suicide is that people don't realize it takes 800,000 lives globally. Every 40 seconds, one person commits suicide. And if you look at that in aggregate, that's higher than HIV and AIDS, that's higher than malaria, that's higher than war and famine. So we look at the war in Russia and Ukraine, but we don't realize more people are dying because they take their own lives than through all these other wars and things like that. It's tragic. So in Nigeria is one of the epicenters of suicide, unfortunately. Globally, we're ranked the 15th in terms of suicide. And then in Africa, we're the 7th. So if we want to think about public health, if we want to think about saving people's lives, because every life is important, we need to make sure that we give people the tools for suicide prevention and make sure that people know that there's hope out there, that they can talk to other individuals and that their lives are very important.
Ade Dotun, could you share trends related to suicide that we should be aware of?
Okay, so according to data, thank you for that question, we find out that more women are committing suicide. But that's the data we have. Because here, it's not being reported. The reporting rate is very low. So if you say you want to know exactly how many people are dying or killing themselves, it's difficult to find out because it's the stigma that comes with it. People will not say, okay, the person died of malaria or something. But if it's suicide, nobody's going to mention it because we don't want to be stigmatized. We don't want people to know that, oh, this person is killing themselves. So the trends for us in Nigeria, due to data problem, it's very low. So we don't even know how much. The rates that we have now, it's not the true picture. So more men are killing themselves, more women are killing themselves. But how much? What's the exact value? What's the exact data? We don't have that. But the truth is that it's on the rise. globally and even in Nigeria, and it's happening daily. So it's a big deal. And we also find out that younger people are also killing themselves more because of the expectations, because of the trends going on. Globalization has happened. You have overload of information. You have so much pressure to want to be somebody else. You want to be like somebody without even asking how this person has gotten there. So that pressure is there. And you find the youths, they want to achieve so much in so little time, and it's not happening. They start to say, oh, there's no point being here. Let's just end it. So we have more youths even killing themselves because of the pressure, because of the expectation. So unfortunately, and that's one of the reasons why we are crying out, we need to have this data. We need to see that people are reporting. We need to let people say, oh, come out and let's talk about this thing. These are the struggles we have. And even those, because the struggle is not just for the person trying, the family, the friends, everybody is suffering. So we need to talk about this.
It's new to me, what you said earlier, that women, have a higher rate than men. I would assume it's men.
No.
I was actually surprised when
So
you said that.
that's the problem. So you see, there are a lot of data out there that it's not holistic. It's not full. So we have, oh, these people, because these people are talking more, this is happening more. But a lot of these things are happening every day, and we are not sure how bad it is because we don't have the data.
It's even worse, like you said, because it's underreported and not reported alone. But for me, something I'm very proud of this year is that I tasked myself to read the Bible in 1 year, and I'm doing great. And so it has also given me an objective perspective of the Bible, which everything going on in life right now has happened before. So there's nothing new under the surface of the earth. And even in the Bible, it says, come to me those who are weary and heavy laden, which means even in the past they had these issues. One of the reasons why mental health isn't reported as widely, because we are very religious as Africans and as Nigerians. And so a lot of people go to the churches or the mosques for mental support. What role can the church play with mental support? Because sadly, in Nigeria, when I think about religion, sometimes I see guilt, fear, and judgment. I don't see love, receptiveness, and encouragement. And so the one safe space is now becoming a place where people are scared of.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for considering this point of consideration, point of view, especially from the religious aspect. One of the things we have done as a church, because we look at suicide or mental health as two-way thing. There is the spiritual side and there's the emotional side. What most churches try to do is to spiritualize everything. As a church, we've recognized the fact that even the fruit of the Spirit, they are emotions. Love, peace, joy. They are things that expresses our emotions. So even the Bible recognizes the space or the place of your emotional well-being and your mental well-being. So while we pray for you to say God will heal you and all of that, we also tell you it is not a lack of faith to seek professional help when you have suicidal thoughts. So we collaborate. In fact, in our counseling team, because most churches have counseling team, they have counseling numbers, we have professionals. For instance, if somebody like him is a member of our church and we know that this is what you do, my pastor will call you and say, you have to be in the counseling team. So of course there's always the line between pro bono and then offering your professional service, which we can always discuss. But after we have prayed for you, we then tell you, I think you should talk to a counselor. And I think a lot of churches should imbibe that kind of culture. It is not a lack of faith. It is a demonstration of your faith also to also talk to somebody that is a professional that can help you while we pray on the spiritual side of things, but you still need to talk to a professional.
So is this open to just anybody or just members of your church?
So it is, for us, it's just opened. But what we did, I think during COVID, we had a surge in a lot of people needing help. So what we did then was to collaborate with other churches or the council. So we had a council number that was online. So it's also open, but we don't advertise it yet. We actually even have a portal, where people can go and can book a counseling session for people, basically. But most of the time, we advertise it within the church. But I think it's something we should consider opening to the public more.
You mentioned something about it in Chime. mental health care is expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, every Nigerian deserves therapy. If you are buying fuel at 600 naira per right
You
now,
need to
you
go to
deserve
the-
therapy because I get upset every week when I see how much I spend. I also
Yeah.
get sad when I see the number of people who send me requests asking for money
For
every
food.
day.
Yeah.
I may be looking for millions, but I have people who are asking me for 1,000 naira, 2,000 naira on a daily basis. And sometimes I need therapy.
Yeah.
But I go to a mental health specialist and they're telling me 25 to 50,000 naira
And that's
per session.
Per session. And that's even cheap, to be honest. Yeah. That rate you mentioned actually is subsidized rates
Rates.
that for different foundations. And so I'd like to say a couple of things because I think it's important. To the point about everybody needs this support, all of us. There was a study by Africa Polling Institute and Manny, and it said that over almost 75% of Nigerians, there's actually 71%, have acute levels of stress. Do you get me? So we're all feeling this anxiety and this pressure. And then we talked about people needing resources, right? And the pastor mentioned his phone number. I like to let people know that if they visit our website at www.nigerianmentalhealth.org, we actually have a compilation of crisis hotlines. So if you're suffering, if you need help, if you feel like you don't know what to do, you can go on our website and we have hotlines that are national. We have hotlines from our organizations that are part of our membership so people can get the help that they need. But people are in crisis. And one of the good things is that we're working, partners like myself, with Diddy, people in the Nigerian Mental Health Network, we're working with the federal government to try to create a framework to support. So there's ongoing things like the suicide prevention framework that's going on. We just attended a validation workshop for that. We're trying to do a roadmap for the Mental Health Act because it just passed, but what are the next steps exactly? There's going to be an updated mental health policy. The last time we had an update was in 2013. So it's very, very key that we work on these things and give the regulatory environment for people to succeed. But I'd also like to say is that, people can't succeed if we have criminalized suicide. So one of the things me and Diddy and our organizations I'm working on called Suicide Not Crime NG. And with Suicide Not Crime NG, we're trying to encourage the federal government to mainstream the decriminalization of attempted suicide, and we'd like to call on the administration to work on that if they think mental health is important. On September 28th, we're actually going to have a policy brief launched on our website, and people can visit our website to get more information. September 28th at 6 p.m., we have MI, Dr. Anton
Lekin.
We have the National Program Coordinator of the Federal Ministry of Health, and then we also have myself talking about why we need to do that and giving people the resources that they need. Everybody needs to know that there's escape right, there's hope at the end of the light. And whether it's in faith leaders, whether traditional leaders, and one of the things I like about Nigeria, unlike other places, countries, is that we've tried to mainstream traditional and faith rulers. In part of the Mental Health Act creates a Mental Health Assessment Committee. Unlike other committees on the continent, ours actually says that there should be a traditional or faith leader on there. So we need to encourage that. And as a matter of fact, me and Diddy were just talking about how we need to make sure that faith is part of the conversation. Because the top 5 reasons that people think about mental health, 2 of them have to do with faith.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can't divorce the cares. And you guys are core gatekeeper for individuals who need access to care.
Interesting. Adedoton, how do we raise awareness now about suicide prevention? And what ways can we erase that shame, that stigma surrounding mental health?
Okay, so first thing we need to know that mental health is our business, everybody's business. And the determinants of mental health, it's very huge. There's a huge intersectionality. So we've talked about welfare. We've talked about the stressors. What are the things that are affecting us? What are the things that are making us get to that spot? And basic welfare is not available. So you cannot say, oh, we want to provide care, therapy for someone who doesn't have food, who doesn't have shelter, who doesn't even have a job. So we need to come together. So awareness is good. We need to educate ourselves. We need to educate me, you. We need to know what is mental health, what are the signs, what are the symptoms, what are the stressors. At the same time, education is not enough. We need to promote accessible, affordable, and equitable mental health care, even to the grassroots level. As a public health person, if everybody do not get access to health, we cannot achieve health for all. we cannot achieve universal health coverage. So that should be the key. So every sector needs to come together. Then you say, oh, we are aware, because this is a continuum. We're creating awareness that suicide happens, mental health is a problem. So what? So you're going to create this awareness. People know that this is what I'm going through. Then what next? So if you're generating demand, you should also give supply. That's the service. So a lot of sectors need to come together. This is not one person's business. It's not just me as an advocate or the church. Yes, a lot of things needs to be done in the church. Like I'm one of those people that tell the church, okay, you have a counseling department. Can you call us to come and build their capacity? At least provide basic first aid. So then that way you say, okay, you have created the awareness and you have also created the service. Because 90% of Nigerians will not pay 20,000 naira for therapy. It doesn't make sense. Therapy is not a one-off thing. Therapy, you need several sessions. But it's someone that is in the market that is not sure how they're going to eat, or someone that doesn't have a roof over their head, we say come to therapy. So his own stressor is different. And that's why we must go to the grassroots. We need to identify different people have different things that are triggering their mental health, different things that are making them, that's pushing them towards attempting suicide. What are the basics? What are the foundation? If we don't do that, creating awareness is going to cause more problem for us. Because yes, everybody's aware. We know that this problem is there. So what?
Can I just add to this? So there's two things just to this point. One of the things we need to do is make sure there's, people have insurance, right? And they have basic universal health care coverage. But one of the things that's often not covered is mental health care. So to that point, we need insurance, our agencies, right? Health insurance
HMOs,
agencies,
yes.
to make sure that part of the primary coverage focuses on mental health. And the second thing is we need psychosocial support. You said drugs are expensive, right? And drugs and therapy is important, but we need to really look at wellness too,
Exactly.
right? So whether it's walking, right? Whether it's music, you guys were talking about omole and the lyrics and self-expression and things like that. Whether it's yoga, what is the thing that helps you survive? And for me, it's music, for instance, but other people, journaling and affirmations, things. So we need to look at the body. And one of the things that we have with the Nigerian mental health is we have a wellness component. And a lot of our members have something like this because therapy is expensive. Drugs are expensive. So we have to look at other sources, unfortunately, to make these things more accessible. One of the things is psychosocial support. And unfortunately, that's something that the government is not really supporting. We have mental health funding. Of the 99% of the health budget goes to biomedical support, not psychosocial support, right? And as a matter of fact, even of the health budget, which is 5% of the entire budget, only 3%, 2.9, goes to mental health. So if if the government is not increasing funding towards mental health and increasing things to psychosocial support like support groups or supporting trainings and things like that, we're not going to have the access we need. And this is why we have proponents like us encouraging the federal government. Now, they're making a lot of strides. I like to give a lot of credit to the federal government right now. They're doing a lot in this, but we need people in the media to continue to amplify these important messages.
Like we're doing, talking about
Yes.
affirmations. On my phone, I have a reminder every 9 a.m. for affirmations. So every 9 a.m., it reminds me to tell myself 3 positive things. You should do it, Didi.
I should, because clearly from what I've gotten from what
Yeah.
both of you just said is that we should take mental health as important as our physical
Physical health,
health.
yes.
That's the mistake, Many people don't even know what mental health is. People think mental health is the problem. Mental health is not a problem. It's a holistic health. It's a component of your physical, mental, and social well-being. So you cannot take your physical health and silo. So health is not generally because you have the disease or not. You have to have a holistic mind because the way you think, the way you feel is going to impact on the way you act. So it's a big deal. We cannot neglect it and say we have a holistic health. In fact, mental health is more important, if you say, than all of this. But because of the misconceptions,
Yeah.
Well, I want you to have the final say. I watched with a lot of displeasure recently how people targeted, I think his name is Jimmy Odukoya. This young man lost his mom years ago, who was a pastor, and recently lost his father. And now the church has decided that, hey, he would be the lead pastor of the church. Christians within the church have castigated him so much that he has dreadlocks. He has full beard. He has one earring. This thing about stigma, lack of empathy in the church. Jesus was killed by Christian, by
religious
people within
Yeah.
the
This
faith.
faith.
The Pharisees or Sadducees, thousands of years later, we see it happening to people. If this young man decides, you know what, the church, and there's something they call church hurt these days, the church has hurt me so much. Young girls who get pregnant out of wedlock are kicked out of the church.
Yeah.
This young man can decide, with the attacks which he had, I felt bad reading posts on Instagram of how people were attacking him. And he decides, you know, I'm not going to do this anymore, or he goes the extra mile, God forbid,
Yeah.
then everyone will come and blame the same society
Society.
and all whatnot. I want you to wrap up speaking on empathy and
Kindness,
the
compassion.
stigmatization which we see within the church and how we as religious people must do better.
Thank you so much for bringing that up. I think, you see, one of the basic things we need to understand is that kindness is being taken away from our society these days. I even think one of the things we need to even talk about is social media, the effect of social media on people's mental, well-being, and all of that. So I agree. A lot of churches, but thankfully we have new generation churches these days that are promoting and
Inclusion.
making people see that one of the key performance indicator that Jesus gave, that this is how you will know that you are my disciple if you love one another. And that is one of the basic foundation of our faith, love. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. And he said we should do likewise. The two greatest commandments we have is to love God with all of our hearts. And then the second one is to love our neighbors ourselves. He said all the commandments in this world hang on these two statements. And so as a church, we'll continue to preach love, we continue to preach kindness, we continue to preach tolerance to one another. So I also think a whole lot of the people in churches that do some of these things, they were not properly taught. Some of them don't even have that understanding. But what we are doing and collaborating with other people is to say that we should not judge. We should not judge people. We should cut people some slack. In the process of saying the truth, the Bible says that say the truth in love. That's what the Bible commanded us. So in the process of saying the truth, in the process of disagreeing with somebody, you don't have to attack them. You don't have to bring them down. If you disagree with the way they look, just say, I disagree with you. There's a theological statement that spoke about the essentials and non-essentials of our faith. The essentials of our faith is whether you're born again, whether you're going to go to heaven. The non-essentials are the way you dress, the way you observe some things, you eat some things. Those ones are non-essentials. They will not take you to heaven. But the theologian has said, in all things, let there be love.
I think that's a great place to live. Because of time, we could go on and on and on. We need to call you guys back to discuss social media on another day because that's a whole world
On its
on its own. But I know you want to say something. 10 seconds.
Okay, so I just wanted to go back to his word of kindness. So good thing, on the 10th of October this year, the theme for the Global Mental Health Day is celebrating the power of community kindness. So we know that kindness is going to push us a long way. Even we have an event to celebrate that, and is achieving social inclusion through community kindness. If we're not kind to ourselves, if we do not learn and remember the power of community kindness, we can achieve any form of inclusion, either in the spiritual place or in the social sector. So we need to be particular about that.
Choose kindness, choose love. And this is what I say to people I care about. Choose kind people in your life because it's such a great tool, skill, talent, emotion. Like choose kindness. That's the mark you can take on this segment. Not go away. We'll see you shortly after this break.